I was standing in the frozen food aisle of Costco when my marriage exploded. Not metaphorically, not gradually. One second I was comparing prices on chicken breasts, and the next, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Thought you should know what your wife does on Tuesday afternoons. Below it, a photo. The chicken package slipped from my hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. My vision tunneled. That was definitely Olivia, my Olivia, in the front seat of a Mercedes I'd never seen before, her head thrown back in a way I hadn't witnessed in months, maybe years. The angle was taken from outside the vehicle, through the windshield, in what looked like the parking structure of the Riverside office complex downtown. My hands shook as I zoomed in. Her wedding ring caught the light. The man's face was partially visible, older, graying at the temples, expensive watch visible on his wrist as his hand. I locked my phone and shoved it in my pocket, my breath coming in short gasps. "Sir, you dropped this." An elderly woman held out the chicken package, concern creasing her face. "Thanks," I managed, taking it automatically. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. I abandoned my cart in the aisle and walked straight out to my truck, my legs operating on autopilot. Once inside, I sat in the driver's seat and forced myself to look at the photo again. Really look at it. Tuesday afternoons. Today was Thursday, which meant this had happened 2 days ago, and she'd come home, kissed me hello, asked about my day at the construction company, and sat across from me at dinner like nothing had happened. How many Tuesdays? The question carved itself into my brain. We'd been married for 11 years. Our daughter Emily was 9. Our son Tyler was 6. Every Tuesday for the past 3 months, Olivia had said she was taking a Pilates class at the gym. She'd come home in workout clothes, slightly flushed, hair damp from what I'd assumed was exertion. I'd believed every word. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Every Tuesday since January, parking structure, level 3. His name is Richard Pemberton. He's a partner at Whitmore & Associates. Your wife is his paralegal. I stared at that message for a full minute. Olivia had been so excited when she got that job 6 months ago. After years of being a stay-at-home mom, she'd wanted to use her pre-law degree to feel like herself again. I'd supported her completely, even adjusted my schedule to handle more pickup and drop-off duties with the kids. And this was what that support had bought me. Another buzz. This time, a video file. My thumb hovered over it for several seconds before I pressed play. It was security footage, grainy but clear enough. The same Mercedes, same parking spot. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. last Tuesday. I watched my wife's car pull in 2 spots away. Watched her get out, check her appearance in her side mirror, and walk to the Mercedes. The driver's door opened. She slid into the passenger seat. 43 minutes later, according to the timestamp when the video resumed, she emerged, adjusting her skirt, running her fingers through her hair. She walked back to her car with the particular careful gait of someone trying to appear normal. I was going to be sick. Instead, I called the only person I could think of, my brother Jake. "Hey, what's up?" His voice was cheerful, background noise suggesting he was at his auto shop. "I need you to watch the kids tonight. Don't tell Olivia why, just, can you do it?" The cheer vanished from his tone. "What happened? Can you do it or not?" Yeah, of course. "David, what's going on?" "I'll tell you later. Can you be at my house by 5:30? "I'll be there." I hung up and sat in that parking lot for another 20 minutes, my mind racing through every interaction from the past few months. The new lingerie she'd bought for herself. The way she'd started going to bed earlier, claiming exhaustion. How she'd become protective of her phone, taking it everywhere, even to the bathroom. The signs had been there. I'd just been too trusting, or too stupid, to see them. Another text from the unknown number. I can provide more evidence if needed. No charge. He did the same thing to my sister. Destroyed her family. Thought you deserved to know. I typed back with trembling fingers. Who are you? Someone who believes people should face consequences. Good luck. I tried calling the number. It rang once and went to a generic voicemail. When I tried texting again, the message failed to deliver. Number disconnected or blocked. Didn't matter. What I had was enough. I forwarded all the messages to my email, then to a cloud storage account. I'd learned enough from running my construction business to know that documentation was everything. If this anonymous person could get this information, I needed to preserve it before it disappeared. By the time I pulled into my driveway at 5:15, I'd made several decisions. First, I wouldn't confront Olivia yet. Not until I knew exactly what I was dealing with, what my options were, and how to protect my kids from the fallout. Second, I was going to find out everything, every detail, every lie. Third, she was going to regret the day she'd decided I wasn't enough. Jake's truck pulled up right at 5:30. I met him at the door before he could knock. Kids, I called into the house. Uncle Jake's here. He's taking you for pizza and ice cream. The thunder of small feet on stairs, excited shouts. Olivia appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, surprise on her face. That beautiful face I'd woken up next to for 11 years. Oh, I didn't know we had plans? I watched Olivia walk up the driveway through the kitchen window, her yoga mat tucked under one arm, water bottle in the other hand. Tuesday. Another Tuesday. Jake stood beside me, arms crossed. He hadn't asked questions when he arrived 20 minutes ago. Just looked at my face and nodded. Kids are watching a movie in the basement, he said quietly. Thanks. Olivia came through the door, smiling. That same smile she'd given me every Tuesday for months. Bright, relaxed. Post-workout glow that I now knew came from something else entirely. Hey, Jake. Didn't know you were coming by. She set down her mat and kissed my cheek. Her lips felt like ice. Just needed him to watch the kids for a bit, I said. You and I have an appointment. Her smile faltered. Appointment? Marriage counselor, Dr. Patricia Brennan, 5:30. The confusion on her face looked genuine. David, what? We don't have a... We do now. I made it this afternoon. Jake cleared his throat. I'll just head downstairs with Emily and Tyler. Olivia watched him go, then turned to me. What's going on? Get cleaned up. We leave in 20 minutes. I don't understand. Did something happen? I met her eyes, held them. You tell me. Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe. Or calculation. But she recovered quickly. Okay, let me shower. She headed upstairs. I heard the bathroom door close, then the water start running. My phone sat on the counter. No new messages since the number disconnected. Whoever had sent me those files had vanished completely. I tried calling back twice. Nothing. Just dead air. Didn't matter. What I had was enough. But it wasn't about the evidence anymore. Not entirely. I needed to understand the scale of this. The planning. The lies. How deep it went. And I needed her to know that I knew. Dr. Brennan's office was in a converted house on Maple Street, the kind of place with soft lighting and abstract art that probably cost more than my truck. The waiting room smelled like lavender. Olivia sat beside me on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater. No makeup. She looked younger. Vulnerable. I felt nothing. Mr. and Mrs. Torres? A woman in her 50s appeared in the doorway. Gray hair pulled back, glasses on a chain. I'm Dr. Brennan. Come on back. Her office had 2 chairs facing each other with a small table between them. Not a couch. No place to hide together. So, Dr. Brennan settled into her own chair with a notepad. David, you called this afternoon. Said it was urgent. What brings you both in today? Olivia looked at me. Waiting. I pulled out my phone. I need you to watch something. Dr. Brennan's eyebrows rose. Usually we start with, please, just watch. I opened the video file, turned the screen so both of them could see. Pressed play. The parking structure. Level 3. Timestamp. 2:47 p.m. last Tuesday. Olivia's car pulling in. The Mercedes already there. Richard Pemberton getting out. Walking to her window. Olivia's face went white. I let it play. 30 seconds. That was enough. David, her voice cracked. How long? I asked. Dr. Brennan set down her pen. Perhaps we should. How long, Olivia? She was crying now. Real tears, not the fake ones I'd probably seen before without knowing. Since January. 4 months? Yes. Every Tuesday. Yes. The word hung there, simple, factual, destroying everything. Who else knows? I asked. She blinked. What? Who else knows about you and Richard Pemberton? No one. David, no one knows. We were careful. Someone knows. I showed her my phone, the anonymous texts, the photos, the video. Someone's been watching you, documenting everything. They sent this to me 2 days ago. Her hands were shaking. Who would? They said Richard did the same thing to their sister, destroyed her family. I leaned forward. How many other women has he done this with? I don't know. You don't know? David, please. Does his wife know? Olivia's face crumpled. He's divorced. That's not what I asked. He got divorced 3 years ago. He told me. He told you. I laughed. It sounded harsh even to my own ears. And you believed him, just like I believed you. Dr. Brennan cleared her throat. David, I understand you're hurt, but I hired someone. The words came out flat, cold. A private investigator, this morning, to follow Olivia. Make sure there wasn't more I didn't know about. Olivia's eyes went wide. You hired? He called me 2 hours ago. I pulled up the email on my phone. Read from it. Subject is maintaining normal patterns. Grocery store, dry cleaning, home. But there's something else. Subject is also under surveillance, professional grade. Someone is tracking her movements, her schedule, her routes. Someone other than me. The room went silent. What? Olivia whispered. I showed her the attached photos. Olivia at the grocery store. A man in a gray jacket 3 aisles over, phone pointed at her. Olivia at the dry cleaners. Same man in a sedan across the street. Different angle, different location. Same professional distance. My investigator says this guy knows what he's doing. Former military, maybe. Or law enforcement. He's building a file. On me? Olivia's voice was barely audible. On you, on your movements, on your habits. I swiped to the next photo. And he's not alone. This one showed Richard Pemberton leaving his office building. Different man, younger, baseball cap, camera with a long lens. They're watching both of you, I said. Whoever sent me those files didn't stop there. They're still gathering information. Dr. Brennan leaned forward. David, if someone is stalking your wife, or protecting me, I said, making sure I have everything I need. Olivia was shaking now, full body tremors. David, I'm scared. You should be. We need to call the police. And tell them what? That someone's photographing you in public places? That's not illegal. I pocketed my phone. But I'll tell you what is illegal. Adultery might not matter much in most divorce courts anymore, but fraud does. Deception. Using marital assets to support an affair. The gas for your Tuesday drives. The new lingerie I found in your drawer last month. The lunches you've been expensing to the firm that I'm guessing you actually ate with Richard. I ticked them off on my fingers. All paid for with our money. Money I earned while you were… Stop. She was sobbing now. Please stop. Dr. Brennan, I said, standing. I think we're done here. David, wait. But I was already walking to the door. Olivia called after me, but I didn't turn around. Jake was still at the house when we got back. Olivia went straight upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close. Lock. How'd it go? Jake asked. She admitted it. 4 months, every Tuesday. He nodded slowly. What now? Now I figure out who's watching her, and why. You think it's connected to the guy she's been with? Has to be. Someone who knows his pattern, his history. I pulled up the investigator's email again. Studied the photos of the man in the gray jacket. Whoever this is, they're not just documenting an affair, they're building a case. Against who? That was the question. Against Olivia? Against Richard? Or against both of them? My phone buzzed. New email from the investigator. Update. Mail subject, Pemberton. Just received visitor at office. Unscheduled. Security footage shows heated conversation. Visitor left after 8 minutes. Ran plates on his vehicle. Registered to Thomas Brennan, Brennan Security Solutions. I read it twice. Brennan. Dr. Patricia Brennan. Jake, I said slowly. What's the marriage counselor's first name? The one you just saw? I don't know. Why? I was already pulling up the practice website on my phone. There it was. Dr. Patricia Brennan, licensed marriage and family therapist. Established 2015. And at the bottom of the About page, Dr. Brennan is supported by her husband Thomas, a retired police detective who now runs a private security firm. Son of a… My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Mr. Torres? A man's voice. Deep, professional. This is Thomas Brennan. I think we need to talk. The phone call with Thomas Brennan lasted 11 minutes. I sat in my truck outside Jake's shop, engine off, listening to a man I'd met exactly once explain how my life had become the subject of a criminal investigation I didn't know existed. Your wife's lover has done this before, Thomas said. His voice carried the flat precision of someone who delivered bad news professionally for decades. 3 times that we've documented. Each time the pattern was identical. Target a married woman in a vulnerable position. Career change, financial stress, family crisis. Conduct the affair with just enough discretion to avoid immediate discovery. Then leverage the relationship. Leverage how? Information. Access. In 2 cases, the women worked in firms handling sensitive corporate litigation. Richard extracted case details, settlement strategies, client communications. Sold them to opposing counsel. In the 3rd case, the woman's husband owned a commercial real estate development company. Richard obtained proprietary bid information, site assessments, financing structures. Passed them to a competitor. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. And Olivia, your construction company has 3 municipal contracts currently in bid review. 2 school district projects and 1 county facilities renovation. Total value approximately $8.3 million. I'd submitted those bids 6 weeks ago. Olivia knew about them because I'd mentioned the projects at dinner, complained about the paperwork, celebrated when we made the short list. Normal married conversation. The kind where you share your day because you trust the person across the table. She doesn't have access to my bid documents, I said. Everything's password protected on my office computer. Does she know your passwords? I didn't answer. She'd set up my cloud backup system 2 years ago when I'd complained about losing files. She'd created the master password using our anniversary date and the kids' birth years because you'll actually remember it that way. Mr. Torres, I need to be clear about something. We're not investigating you. We're investigating Richard Pemberton for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and interstate transmission of stolen property. Your wife is currently classified as a potential witness and possible co-conspirator. Co-conspirator. The word tasted like metal. We don't know yet what she knew or when she knew it. That's what we're trying to establish. The surveillance on both of them has been ongoing for 3 weeks. We've documented multiple meetings between Richard and Jeffrey Walsh, a project manager at Hillcrest Construction. Hillcrest was our primary competitor for the school district contracts. Jeffrey Walsh had worked for me 5 years ago before I fired him for submitting inflated material estimates to pocket the difference. The FBI is involved, Thomas continued. This crossed state lines when Richard used encrypted email servers based in Virginia to transmit documents. But they're building the case slowly. They want all 3 instances documented, all the victims identified, a clear pattern of racketeering. Why are you telling me this? Why did your wife? I stopped. Dr. Brennan, she knew. The whole time we were in that session, she knew. Patricia has been counseling 2 of Richard's previous victims. That's how we identified the pattern. She can't break confidentiality, but when your wife called to schedule the appointment, Patricia recognized the name. She contacted me. I contacted the FBI field office I used to work with. So the therapy was what? A setup? No. His voice sharpened. Patricia is trying to help your wife. She's trying to give her a chance to get ahead of this before the federal indictment comes down. If Olivia cooperates, provides testimony, demonstrates she was manipulated rather than complicit, she might avoid charges. But that window is closing. I watched a customer pull into Jake's lot, a Honda with a failing muffler. Normal life continuing while mine splintered into federal case numbers and conspiracy charges. What do you need from me? Right now? Nothing. Don't change your behavior. Don't confront Olivia about any of this beyond what you've already discussed. Don't mention the investigation. The FBI will approach you formally within the next week for an interview. Answer their questions honestly. Bring documentation of your bid processes, your security protocols, any communications with Olivia about the municipal contracts. And if she's been feeding him information, then she'll face the consequences. But Mr. Torres, I've read the surveillance reports. Your wife is sleeping with Richard Pemberton. She's lying to you about her schedule. But in 3 weeks of monitoring, we haven't seen her pass documents, photograph files, or discuss your business with him beyond superficial conversation. She talks about your kids, your house, your marriage problems. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to give you information. What you do with it is your choice. The call ended 2 minutes later with Thomas providing a contact name at the FBI field office and a case number I was supposed to reference. I sat in the truck, staring at Jake's shop, trying to reconcile the woman who'd cried in Dr. Brennan's office with someone who might be part of a federal fraud conspiracy. My phone buzzed. Olivia. Kids want pizza tonight. That okay? I stared at the text. Normal, domestic. The kind of message we'd exchanged 10,000 times. I typed back, "Sure, I'll pick it up." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Thank you for still coming home." I didn't respond. Jake found me 20 minutes later, still sitting in the truck. He knocked on the window, holding 2 bottles of beer despite it being 3:30 in the afternoon. "You look like you need this." We sat on the tailgate, not talking, watching traffic pass on the frontage road. Finally, I told him about the call. All of it. The previous victims, the pattern, the FBI investigation, Olivia's potential status as either witness or co-conspirator. Jake drank his beer slowly, processing. So this guy's a professional scumbag. Apparently. And they've been watching him for weeks. Yes. Which means they've been watching Olivia for weeks. Yes. And you didn't know any of this when you went to that counseling session. No. Dr. Brennan knew. Her husband knew. The FBI knew. I was the only one in that room who thought we were actually there for marriage counseling. Jake was quiet for a long moment. You think Olivia's involved? Actually involved, not just sleeping with him? I'd been asking myself the same question since Thomas hung up. I don't know. She knew about the bids. She knew they were important. But I can't see her photographing documents or hacking into my computer. She can barely operate Excel. People surprise you. Yeah, they do. We finished the beers in silence. Then Jake said, "What are you going to do?" What Thomas said, "Nothing. Wait for the FBI to contact me. Answer their questions. Provide documentation." I crushed the empty bottle in my hand. And find out if my wife is just a cheater, or if she's something worse. I picked up pizza at 6:15. The kids were doing homework when I got home, Olivia setting the table like this was a normal Thursday. She'd changed clothes since I'd left that morning, now wearing jeans and one of my old college sweatshirts. Comfortable. Familiar. "How was your day?" she asked. The question was so absurdly normal I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Fine. Busy. You?" "Quiet. I called in sick to work." She didn't meet my eyes. I couldn't face going in there, not after yesterday. After the counseling session where she'd admitted everything, where Dr. Brennan had guided her through a confession while knowing the FBI was building a case, where I'd sat and listened and tried not to think about federal charges and co-conspirator status. "Did you talk to Richard?" I asked. She flinched. "No. I blocked his number like Dr. Brennan suggested. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to see him. I just want—" Her voice cracked. "I just want to figure out how to fix this." I watched her face, looking for signs of deception beyond the obvious betrayal. Looking for calculation. For guilt that went deeper than infidelity. I didn't see it. But then, I hadn't seen the affair either until someone sent me photographs. "The kids are waiting," I said. We ate pizza. Emma talked about her science project. Connor complained about his math teacher. Olivia laughed at the right moments, asked follow-up questions, wiped sauce off Connor's chin. I watched her perform normalcy and wondered what the FBI surveillance team had seen in 3 weeks of monitoring. Wondered what they knew that I didn't. My phone buzzed during dessert. Unknown number. I stepped into the garage to answer. "Mr. Torres, this is Special Agent Lauren Mitchell with the FBI. I understand Thomas Brennan spoke with you earlier today. I'd like to schedule a formal interview. Would tomorrow morning work for you?" Tomorrow was Friday. I had a site inspection at 9 and a contractor meeting at 11. "What time?" 7 a.m., our field office downtown. This shouldn't take more than 2 hours. "I'll be there." She gave me the address and reminded me to bring documentation. When I came back inside, Olivia was clearing plates, her movements careful, like she was afraid of breaking something. "Work call?" she asked. "Yeah, early meeting tomorrow." She nodded, accepting the lie because she had no room to question anything I said anymore. That night, lying in the guest room I'd been using since the confrontation, I stared at the ceiling and thought about patterns. Richard Pemberton's pattern of targeting vulnerable women. The pattern of leverage and extraction. The pattern of normal life concealing federal crimes. And I wondered which pattern Olivia fit into, victim or accomplice. The FBI would tell me tomorrow. The FBI field office in downtown occupied 3 floors of a glass tower that reflected the morning sun like a mirror. I'd driven past it 100 times without giving it a second thought. Now, I was sitting in my truck across the street, 20 minutes early for my 9 o'clock appointment, watching agents filter through the revolving doors with their badges and briefcases. My phone buzzed. "Jake. You good?" "Yeah, going in now." I wasn't good. I'd slept maybe 2 hours lying next to Olivia in the dark, listening to her breathe. She'd asked me last night if everything was okay. I'd said work stress. Another lie added to the collection we were both keeping. The lobby had that federal building smell, floor wax and air conditioning. I gave my name to security, surrendered my phone and keys, walked through a metal detector. A woman in her 30s with her hair pulled back met me on the other side. "Mr. Torres? I'm Special Agent Lisa Brennan. Thank you for coming in." "Brennan." I kept my face neutral. "You're related to Thomas?" "My father-in-law." She smiled slightly. "He mentioned you'd be putting that together. This way, please." We rode the elevator to the 8th floor in silence. She led me through a maze of cubicles to a small conference room with a window overlooking the street. A man was already inside, mid-40s, dark suit, the kind of face that had seen every variation of human dishonesty. "This is Special Agent Kevin Walsh," Lisa said. "He's the lead on the Pemberton investigation." Walsh stood and shook my hand. His grip was firm, measuring. "Mr. Torres, have a seat." They sat across from me. Walsh opened a folder, but he didn't look at it. He looked at me. "We appreciate your cooperation," he said. "I understand Thomas gave you some background yesterday. What I need from you today is a complete picture of your wife's access to your business information. Specifically, anything related to the municipal bids your company submitted over the past 6 months." I'd rehearsed this. "Stick to facts. Don't speculate about Olivia's intentions." "She had my laptop password," I said. "She used it sometimes to check our bank accounts, pay bills online. The bid documents were on my computer, but they were also on my work server. She wouldn't have needed physical access. She could have forwarded files from my email." "Did she ever show unusual interest in your work? Ask specific questions about bid amounts, project details, timelines?" I thought back. "Tuesday dinners, casual conversations about my day." Had there been questions? There were always questions. She'd ask how the Franklin Street project was going, whether I'd heard back about the school renovation contract. Normal wife questions. Or were they? "She asked general questions," I said. "Nothing that seemed out of place at the time." Lisa leaned forward slightly. "At the time. What about now, looking back?" "Now everything seems like it could have been something else." Walsh nodded like he'd heard that before. "When did you first notice your wife's relationship with Richard Pemberton?" 4 days ago. I got anonymous texts with photos." "We know about those," Walsh said. "The phone was a burner, purchased with cash at a convenience store in Riverside. Security footage showed a woman, mid-20s, paid cash, left. We haven't identified her. Thomas said Richard's done this before. 3 other women." "4 that we know of," Walsh corrected. "The pattern is consistent. He targets married women whose husbands have access to valuable business intelligence. He cultivates a relationship, gains their trust, extracts information. Sometimes the women know what they're doing. Sometimes they don't." "Which one is Olivia?" "That's what we're trying to determine." Lisa pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, turned it toward me. Security footage, black and white, dated 3 weeks ago. Olivia and Richard in what looked like a restaurant booth. She was leaning close, laughing. He slid a small notebook across the table. She picked it up, flipped through it, nodded. "We have 17 documented meetings outside of work hours," Lisa said. "Restaurants, coffee shops, his car. This is the only time we've observed a physical exchange of any object." "What was in the notebook?" "We don't know. By the time we got a warrant to search his vehicle, it was gone." Walsh pulled out another document. "Your competitor, Stratton Construction, their owner, Dennis Stratton, met with Richard 4 times in the past 2 months. Always at Richard's office, always during business hours. Stratton submitted bids on the same 3 municipal contracts you did. His numbers undercut yours by margins ranging from 3 to 7%. The school renovation, the water treatment facility expansion, the municipal parking structure. All 3 contracts I'd been certain we'd win. All 3 went to Stratton. How much did I lose?" In potential revenue, approximately 8.3 million over the next 18 months. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, clarity. You're saying Richard got my bid information from Olivia and sold it to Stratton. We're saying that's the most likely scenario based on current evidence, Walsh said. What we need to establish is whether your wife knowingly participated or was manipulated into providing access. Does it matter? Legally? Yes. If she knowingly conspired to commit wire fraud, she's looking at federal charges. If she was manipulated, if Richard accessed your information without her knowledge or consent, she's a victim. Lisa's expression softened slightly. We've interviewed 2 of the other women. Both claimed they had no idea what Richard was doing. Both had given him access to their homes, their computers, their husband's information, thinking they were in legitimate relationships. Both were devastated when they found out. Were they charged? One wasn't. The other was. But the charges were dropped when she cooperated fully, and we determined she'd been genuinely deceived. Walsh closed the folder. Here's where we are. We have enough evidence to charge Richard with wire fraud, conspiracy, and theft of trade secrets. What we don't have is definitive proof of how he obtained the information. Your wife's involvement is a missing piece. We need to interview her. When? Today, if possible, with her attorney present. We're not looking to ambush her, Mr. Torres, but we need her statement on record. I thought about Olivia at home, getting the kids ready for school, probably wondering why I'd left so early. She didn't know any of this was coming. She doesn't have an attorney. Then she'll need to get one. Fast. Walsh slid a business card across the table. This is a defense attorney who specializes in white-collar cases. She's good. Fair. If your wife is genuinely a victim here, this attorney will help establish that. I pocketed the card. What happens to Richard? We are executing a search warrant on his office and residence this afternoon. He'll be arrested, arraigned, and held pending trial. Given the flight risk and the pattern of behavior, we'll argue for no bail. And Olivia? That depends on what she tells us, Lisa said, and whether it matches what we already know. They walked me back to the elevator. Walsh shook my hand again at the security checkpoint. One more thing, he said. Don't discuss the details of this investigation with your wife before she speaks to an attorney. Anything you tell her could be considered witness tampering. Let the lawyer handle it. I nodded, collected my phone and keys, walked out into the bright morning. My truck was where I'd left it, but the world had shifted again. 4 days ago, I'd learned my wife was having an affair. Yesterday, I'd learned she was under federal investigation. Today, I'd learned she might have destroyed my business, knowingly or not. I sat behind the wheel and called the number on the card Walsh had given me. A woman answered on the second ring. Paulson Law Group. I need to speak to Attorney Paulson. It's urgent. My wife needs representation in a federal case. I'll connect you now. The hold music lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then a crisp voice came on the line. This is Jennifer Paulson. I understand you need immediate assistance. My wife is about to be interviewed by the FBI. They said I should call you. Did Special Agent Walsh refer you? Yes? Then I already know the case. How soon can you and your wife be in my office? I checked the time. 10:15. 2 hours. I'll be ready. And Mr. Torres? Don't let her speak to anyone about this case until she speaks to me. Not friends, not family, not you. Understood? Understood. I hung up and started the truck. The drive home took 20 minutes. Olivia's car was still in the driveway. The kids would be at school by now. I found her in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. She looked up when I walked in, smiled. Hey, I didn't hear you leave this morning. We need to talk, I said. Get your purse. We have an appointment downtown in 90 minutes. The smile faded. What kind of appointment? with a criminal defense attorney. You're being investigated by the FBI. The FBI interview was scheduled for Thursday morning at 9, 3 days away. I spent Tuesday night in the guest room again. Olivia didn't try to stop me. The house felt like a museum now, every room displaying artifacts from a marriage that might have been a lie from the start. I kept thinking about that notebook. The one Richard had slid across the table at the restaurant, the one that had vanished before the FBI could catalog it. Wednesday morning, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Torres, my name is Vincent Hayes. I'm the private investigator you hired through Brennan Security." I'd almost forgotten. Thomas had recommended someone to dig into Richard's background, see what else might be hiding there. "Right, what do you have?" "Can we meet? There are some things you need to see in person." We met at a coffee shop in the business district, far enough from my usual routes that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. Hayes was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of forgettable face that probably served him well in his line of work. He slid a folder across the table. "Richard Pemberton has a very interesting financial profile," Hayes said. "On paper, he makes about $400,000 a year as a partner. Nice income, but not extravagant for someone at his level." "Okay. Except he's living like he makes 3 times that. Waterfront condo, paid in cash 2 years ago. Mercedes, also cash. He took 4 international trips last year, all first class. And he's got accounts in the Cayman Islands." I opened the folder. Bank statements, property records, travel itineraries. "The FBI know about this?" "They will. I'm copying everything to Agent Walsh this afternoon." Hayes leaned forward. "But there's something else. Something that connects to you specifically." He pulled out another document, a corporate filing. 6 months ago, Richard became a silent partner in a consulting firm called Apex Strategic Solutions. They specialize in competitive intelligence and market analysis. That's corporate speak for industrial espionage, I finished. "Exactly. And guess who else is invested in Apex?" I scanned the document. The name jumped out at me like a punch to the gut. Warren Stratton, owner of Stratton Construction. Jesus Christ. It gets better. Apex has exactly 3 clients on record, all construction companies, all competitors of yours, and all 3 won contracts in the last year by underbidding you by margins that suggest they knew your exact numbers. My hands were shaking again. "How long has this been going on?" "The firm was established 18 months ago, but the pattern goes back further. I found 2 other women who had relationships with Richard. Both were married to business owners. Both marriages ended in divorce. And in both cases, the husband's companies experienced significant financial losses right before the splits. He's been doing this for years. At least 5 that I can document. Probably longer." Hayes pulled out photos. 2 women, both attractive, both wearing wedding rings in the earlier shots. Jennifer Martin. Her husband owned a software company. They lost a major contract to a competitor 3 months before she filed for divorce. The competitor's bid was almost identical to theirs, just slightly lower. And the other one? Rebecca Cole. Husband ran a pharmaceutical distribution business. Same pattern. Lost contracts, divorce, financial ruin. Rebecca's husband killed himself 2 years ago. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. Does the FBI know about these cases? They're building the file now. But here's the thing, Mr. Torres. In both previous cases, the wives claimed they had no idea they were being used. They said Richard was charming, attentive, made them feel special. They didn't know he was pumping them for information. You believe them? Hayes shrugged. Jennifer works at a grocery store now. Rebecca moved back in with her parents. If they were in on it, they didn't get paid. Richard, on the other hand, has gotten very wealthy. I stared at the photos. 2 women whose lives had been destroyed. 1 dead husband. And now Olivia, sitting at home waiting for her FBI interview, possibly facing federal charges for something she might not have even understood she was doing. Or maybe she understood perfectly. "There's one more thing," Hayes said. "I've been following Richard for the past week. Surveillance, tracking his movements. And I'm not the only one watching him." "The FBI." "Yeah, them. But also someone else. Professional, careful. They're good enough that I almost didn't spot them. Black SUV, rotates license plates, always stays 3 cars back. They've been on him for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer." "Who are they?" "No idea yet. But whoever they are, they're spending serious money. This isn't some jealous spouse or amateur detective. This is corporate-level surveillance." I thought about what Agent Walsh had said. Multiple parties watching Olivia and Richard. The surveillance web was bigger than anyone had realized. "Keep digging," I said. "I want to know who else is in this." "Already on it." Hayes stood up. "One more thing. Be careful, Mr. Torres. If someone's watching Richard, they're probably watching everyone connected to him. That includes your wife. And probably you." After he left, I sat there staring at the folder. 5 years. Maybe more. How many marriages had Richard destroyed? How many businesses had he helped dismantle? And how many other Warren Strattons were out there paying for stolen information? My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "Can we talk, please?" I didn't respond. Instead, I called Agent Walsh. "Mr. Torres, I was about to call you. I just met with a private investigator. He found connections between Richard and my competitors, specifically Warren Stratton. We know. We've been building that case for the past 48 hours. Stratton's offices were raided this morning. And he's cooperating. Gave us everything. Emails, payment records, the whole network. Richard's been selling business intelligence for years. Stratton paid him $80,000 for your bid information alone. $80,000. My company lost $8.3 million, and Richard got $80,000. What about Olivia?" Walsh was quiet for a moment. "That's what I need to talk to you about. We've been analyzing the evidence, trying to determine her level of involvement. And there's something you should know before her interview tomorrow." My chest tightened. "What?" "We found encrypted messages between Richard and an unknown party. The encryption is sophisticated, but our tech team cracked it. The messages reference the wife and information transfer. They also mention a payment. A payment to Olivia. We don't know yet. The account information is buried in offshore records. But Mr. Torres, if your wife was receiving compensation for providing information, that changes everything. She wouldn't be a victim anymore. She'd be a co-conspirator." I closed my eyes. "When will you know?" "We're working on it. The interview tomorrow will be critical. If she's honest, if she cooperates fully, it'll help her case. But if she lies, if she tries to cover anything up, she's done." "Yes." I hung up and sat there in the coffee shop, surrounded by people living normal lives, having normal problems. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Olivia. "I know you don't want to talk to me, but there are things I need to tell you before tomorrow. Things about Richard that you don't know. Please." I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it, let her face the FBI alone, let the truth come out however it would. But another part, the part that had loved her for 11 years, that had built a life with her, that had believed in us, needed to know. I typed back, "Home in 20 minutes." When I pulled into the driveway, Olivia was waiting on the front steps. She looked smaller somehow, like she'd physically shrunk in the past week. Her eyes were red, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. I didn't get out of the truck right away, just sat there, watching her through the windshield, wondering if the woman I was looking at was a victim or a criminal. Finally, I opened the door. "Talk," I said. The house felt different when I walked back inside. Same furniture, same walls, same family photos on the mantle, but everything had shifted. Olivia was sitting at the kitchen table, her phone face down in front of her, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had probably gone cold an hour ago. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry now, past the crying stage into something harder. "They're asleep," she said quietly. "I told them you had a work emergency." I nodded, pulling out the chair across from her. The same chair where I'd eaten breakfast that morning, where I'd sat thousands of times before. Now it felt like sitting down for a deposition. "You said there's something I don't know about, Richard." My voice came out flat, professional. The tone I used with subcontractors who'd screwed up. "The FBI interviews you tomorrow at 10. So talk." She flinched at the coldness but didn't look away. "I need you to understand something first. When I started at Whitmore and Associates, I thought—" She stopped, shook her head. "No. That's not where this starts." "Then where does it start?" "With my father." I blinked. Her father had died 6 years ago. Heart attack at 58. I'd helped carry his casket. "Richard knew him?" Olivia continued. Her fingers tightened around the mug. "Before he died. They worked together on something. Dad never told me what, but after the funeral, when I was going through his papers, I found documents, contracts, an NDA with Richard's firm." My stomach dropped. "What kind of contracts?" "Consulting agreements. Dad was feeding information to Whitmore and Associates about his company's clients. Construction clients." She finally met my eyes. "Your competitors." The kitchen tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. "Your father was selling information." "He was desperate. The business was failing, you remember? He never told Mom how bad it was. Richard approached him at some conference, offered him a way out. 50,000 for client lists, bidding strategies, anything useful." Her voice cracked. "Dad took it. And then he died before Richard finished paying him." Jesus Christ. The debt transferred to his estate, to my mother. Richard showed up 3 months after the funeral with paperwork showing Dad still owed his firm money, breach of contract penalties, some legal language I didn't fully understand. He said he'd sue Mom for everything unless— She stopped. "Unless what?" "Unless I worked it off." The words hung in the air like smoke. I stared at her, trying to process what she was telling me. "You're saying Richard blackmailed you into working for him?" "Into working for him, yes. Into the affair." She shook her head violently. "That came later. He was patient about it. Professional at first. Just my boss, nothing inappropriate. He'd mention the debt occasionally, remind me I was making progress paying it down through my work. Then about 8 months ago, things changed." "How?" "He started asking questions about you, about Torres Construction. Casual at first. How's David's business doing? Any big projects coming up, that kind of thing. I didn't think anything of it. Then he invited me to lunch to discuss a case. Took me to that restaurant downtown, the expensive Italian place. The same restaurant from the surveillance photos. I felt sick. He told me the debt was cleared, said I'd worked it off and then some. I was so relieved I almost cried right there in the restaurant." Her hands were shaking now. "Then he said he had a proposition, a way for me to earn real money, enough to set up college funds for Emily and Tyler, enough to give you a cushion so you wouldn't have to work 70-hour weeks." "Information," I said. "He wanted information about my business. He said it was just market research, corporate intelligence, completely legal. He had clients who needed insights into the construction industry, and you were one of the most successful contractors in the region. He offered me $10,000 for your bid on the Riverside Municipal Project. The project I'd lost to Warren Stratton. $8.3 million in contracts. Did you take it?" She closed her eyes. "I told him no. That first time I said no. I came home and I looked at you and the kids and I knew I couldn't do it. So I told Richard the next day that I wasn't interested." But you went back to that restaurant multiple times. The surveillance photos. Because he didn't accept no. Her eyes opened, and there was something fierce in them now. He started mentioning my father again. Said he'd been reviewing the contracts and maybe he'd miscalculated the debt. Maybe mom still owed money. Then he'd smile and say we should have lunch again to discuss it. So he threatened you. Not in words I could record or prove. Richard's too smart for that. He'd just imply things. Let me draw my own conclusions. And then, she swallowed hard. Then he started touching me. Hand on my lower back, brushing my shoulder, standing too close. I told him to stop. He'd apologize, say he misread signals, back off for a few days, then start again. The pattern was familiar. Thomas Brennan had described it, Richard's method with the other wives. Pressure and manipulation, escalating slowly. When did the affair start? February 14th. Her voice was barely a whisper. Valentine's Day. You were in Columbus for that 3-day job. Richard asked me to work late, said we had a brief due. When I got to the office, he had wine, dinner from that French place. He said he couldn't stop thinking about me, that he'd tried to fight it but couldn't anymore. And you slept with him. He kissed me and I didn't stop him. I told myself it was just once, that it didn't mean anything. But then Tuesday came and he texted me, said we needed to meet. I went to that parking garage and she couldn't finish. Every Tuesday since February. Yes? Did you give him information about my business? This was the question that mattered. The one the FBI would ask tomorrow. The one that determined whether my wife was a victim or a co-conspirator. Olivia reached into her pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. Set it on the table between us. That's everything, she said. Every conversation I had with Richard about your business. I recorded them. Started in March when I realized what he was really after. I stared at the drive. You recorded him? On my phone. I researched the law. Maryland is a one-party consent state. I could legally record our conversations without telling him. So I did. Every lunch, every meeting, every time he asked me about your projects or bids or clients. She pushed the drive toward me. I never gave him anything, David. Not one number, not one document. Every time he asked, I deflected or lied. Told him you didn't discuss work at home, that I didn't have access to your files. The payment the FBI mentioned, the encrypted message about money, was Richard trying to convince his partner that I'd cooperated. I never received a dime from him beyond my paralegal salary. She pulled out her phone, opened her banking app, turned it toward me. Check. Every account, every transaction, it's all there. I looked at the screen, then at the USB drive, then at my wife's face. She looked exhausted, terrified. But there was something else there too, a desperate hope that I might believe her. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out rougher than I intended. Any of this. Your father, the debt, Richard's threats. Why did you handle this alone? Because I was ashamed. Tears were sliding down her cheeks now. My father betrayed people like you, sold information, helped destroy businesses. I didn't want you to know that about him, about my family. And then when Richard started pressuring me, I thought I could manage it. I thought I was protecting you by keeping you out of it. By sleeping with him. By documenting everything he did, building a case. Her voice strengthened. I was going to take it to the police, to the State Bar Association. I had months of recordings showing how he manipulated me, coerced me, used the affair as leverage to try to get information about your business. I was waiting until I had enough to destroy him. Instead, I got photos of you in a parking garage. I know how it looks. I know what I did was... She stopped, wiped her eyes. There's no excuse for the affair. Even with everything else, I made that choice. I hurt you, and I hurt our family. But I need you to believe that I never betrayed your business. I never gave Richard anything he could use against you. I picked up the USB drive. It was lighter than it should be for something that might determine my wife's freedom. The FBI will want this. I know. That's why I'm giving it to you first. So you can hear it before they do. So you know the truth before tomorrow. I stood up, the drive clenched in my fist. I'm going to listen to these recordings tonight. All of them. And if there's anything on here that contradicts what you just told me, there isn't. Then tomorrow you're on your own with the FBI. She nodded slowly. I understand. I walked toward my office, then stopped at the doorway. The notebook. The one Richard gave you at the restaurant that disappeared. What was in it? Olivia's expression shifted. Names, addresses, phone numbers. Of what? The other wives. Every woman Richard targeted over the past 5 years. He showed it to me like it was proof I wasn't special, that this was just what he did. I think he wanted to break me down, make me feel like I had no choice but to cooperate. She paused. I photographed every page before I burned it. You burned evidence. I protected those women. Some of them don't know their husbands' business failures were connected to Richard. Some of them are still trying to hold their marriages together. I wasn't going to let that notebook become public record in a federal case. But you have the photos. On a separate drive, hidden. She met my eyes. I'll give it to the FBI tomorrow, but I wanted those women to have one night where their names weren't in a federal database. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if it was noble or stupid or just another secret in a marriage that had apparently been built on them. Listen to the recordings, Olivia said quietly. Then decide if you believe me. I went into my office and closed the door. The recordings took 4 hours to get through. I sat at my desk with headphones on, listening to my wife's voice navigate a minefield. Richard's tone shifted from charming to menacing and back again within the same conversation. He'd ask about my projects casually, like making small talk, then circle back with increasing pressure. Olivia deflected every time, changed subjects, claimed ignorance, lied convincingly about what she knew. The last recording was from 3 weeks ago. Richard's voice had turned cold. You're not being cooperative, Olivia. That's disappointing. I've told you David doesn't discuss his bids with me. But you have access to his computer, his files. I've seen you use his laptop. For banking, for household bills. I think you're lying to me, and I don't appreciate being lied to. A long pause. Then Olivia's voice, steady despite the fear I could hear underneath. And I don't appreciate being manipulated. You used my father's mistakes to control me. You used the affair as leverage. But I'm done, Richard. I'm not giving you anything. Then we have a problem. No, you have a problem. Because I've been recording every conversation we've had for the past 2 months. Every threat, every attempt to coerce me, every time you've tried to extract information about my husband's business. Maryland is a one-party consent state. These recordings are completely legal. And if you contact me again outside of work, if you threaten my family, if you even look at me wrong, I'm taking them to the FBI. Silence on the recording. Then Richard's laugh, bitter and sharp. You think you're clever, but you have no idea what you've done. The recording ended. I sat there in the dark office, the USB drive still blinking on my desk. My wife had been fighting a war I didn't know existed, and she'd been losing, not because she'd given in, but because the cost of winning was destroying our marriage anyway. My phone buzzed. Agent Walsh. Mr. Torres, we need to move up the interview. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. New evidence has come to light regarding Richard's network. We need your wife's statement on record before we execute additional warrants. She has recordings, I said. Months of conversations with Richard. Proof she didn't cooperate with him. Silence. Then, bring them tomorrow. And Mr. Torres? Make sure she brings the other drive too, the one with the photos of Richard's notebook. How did you... We've been monitoring Richard's communications, He mentioned it in an encrypted message. Said Olivia had destroyed evidence but might have kept copies. If she has information about other victims, we need it. After he hung up, I went upstairs. Olivia was sitting on our bed, still dressed, staring at nothing. I listened to everything, I said from the doorway. She looked up, waited. You should have told me. I know. We could have handled this together. I was afraid you'd hate me, for my father, for what I let Richard do, for all of it. Her voice broke. I was afraid I'd lose you. You did lose me, just not the way you thought. She flinched like I'd struck her. I sat down on the edge of the bed, not close enough to touch. The interview is tomorrow at 7. Bring both drives. Tell them everything. And Olivia, don't lie to protect anyone. Not your father, not those other women, not yourself. The only way through this is complete honesty. Will you be there? No, this is yours to handle. She nodded slowly, tears sliding down her face. After tomorrow, after the FBI is done, what happens to us? I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman I'd married 11 years ago who'd given me 2 beautiful children, who'd built a life with me. And at the stranger who'd lied for months, who'd slept with another man, who'd kept secrets that had nearly destroyed everything. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if I can forgive this. Any of it. I understand. I stood to leave, then stopped. But I believe you didn't betray my business. The recordings prove that. So tomorrow, I'll make sure the FBI knows you were trying to protect our family, not destroy it. After that, we'll see. The federal indictment came down 6 days later. Richard Pemberton was charged with wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, interstate transmission of stolen property, and racketeering. Warren Stratton was charged as a co-conspirator. 2 other business owners who'd purchased information were arrested the same day. Olivia was not charged. Agent Walsh called me personally to explain. The recordings were conclusive. Your wife was a victim of coercion and manipulation. She never provided confidential information, never received payment, and actively resisted Richard's attempts to extract intelligence. The affair complicates things emotionally, but legally, she's clear. What about the other women? We've contacted all 7 that we identified from the notebook photos. 3 are cooperating with the investigation. 2 had no idea their relationships with Richard were connected to their husband's business losses. 1 refused to speak with us. The last one, he paused. Jennifer Martin, her husband's suicide. We're reopening that investigation. After we hung up, I sat in my truck outside the FBI building and tried to feel relief. Olivia wasn't going to prison. Our family wouldn't be destroyed by federal charges. But I felt hollow instead. The marriage was still broken. The trust was still gone. 3 months later, I stood in my attorney's office, signing the final divorce papers. Olivia sat across from me, her own pen in hand. We'd worked it out through mediation, joint custody of Emily and Tyler, equal parenting time, a fair division of assets. No fighting, no courtroom drama. Just 2 people who'd once loved each other, dismantling what they'd built. I'm sorry, she said quietly as we stood to leave. For all of it. I know. Do you think... She stopped, shook her head. Never mind. What? Do you think we could have survived this? If I'd told you the truth from the beginning? I thought about that. About the debt and the blackmail and Richard's manipulation. About how fear had driven her to handle it alone and how that choice had cost us everything. Maybe, I said, but we'll never know. Richard Pemberton's trial lasted 3 weeks. I attended every day, sitting in the gallery with the other victims. Warren Stratton testified against him, detailing years of purchased information. 2 of the other wives testified about the manipulation and coercion. Olivia took the stand on day 14 and walked the jury through the recordings, the threats, the systematic destruction Richard had attempted. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Richard was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution totaling $4.7 million to the businesses he'd helped destroy. My company received $1.2 million, not enough to cover what we'd lost, but enough to rebuild. I watched them take him away in handcuffs and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no closure, just exhaustion. A year after the divorce was finalized, I sold Torres Construction. Not because it was failing. The restitution money and 3 new contracts had stabilized everything. But because every time I walked into that office, I thought about bid documents and betrayal and the price of secrets. I started a smaller company, residential work mostly, honest projects with transparent pricing. Emily and Tyler adapted to the custody schedule better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient in ways adults forget how to be. Olivia moved to a smaller house across town. She left Whitmore and Associates and went back to school, finishing her law degree. Last I heard, she was working for a nonprofit that helped victims of workplace harassment, trying to turn her experience into something useful. We were civil at school events and birthday parties, friendly even. But we weren't friends. We were 2 people who'd survived a disaster together and come out on opposite sides of the wreckage. 2 years after everything fell apart, I was having coffee with Jake when he asked the question I'd been avoiding. Do you regret how it ended? With Olivia? I watched the steam rise from my cup, thinking about anonymous text messages and parking garage photos and the moment everything changed. I regret that it happened at all, I said finally. But no, I don't regret the ending. She made choices. I made choices. We both have to live with them. You ever think about dating again? Sometimes. But I'm not ready to trust like that again. Maybe I never will be. Jake nodded. That's fair. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, You know what I think? I think you did the hardest thing. You found out the truth, protected your kids, held your business together, and walked away without destroying yourself in the process. A lot of men wouldn't have managed that. A lot of men wouldn't have needed to. True. But you played the hand you were dealt, and you're still standing. The final piece came 3 years after the divorce. I received a letter from Jennifer Martin, the widow whose husband had killed himself. She'd testified at Richard's trial, her voice steady as she described how her marriage had disintegrated, how her husband's business had collapsed, how he'd put a gun in his mouth because he couldn't see another way out. The letter was short. Mr. Torres, I wanted to thank you and your ex-wife for having the courage to pursue this case. The FBI reopened the investigation into my husband's death. They found evidence that Richard had been blackmailing him, threatening to expose an affair that never happened unless he paid for consulting services. My husband refused. His business failed, and he believed he had no options left. The truth doesn't bring him back. But knowing he wasn't weak, that he was targeted and destroyed by someone evil, it helps. It helps me explain to our daughter why her father is gone. It helps me stop blaming myself for not seeing the signs. You lost your marriage pursuing justice. I wanted you to know that loss meant something. Jennifer. I read that letter 3 times, then filed it away with the other documents from that year. The evidence, the recordings, the divorce decree. Then I went to pick up my kids from school and took them for ice cream, because that's what you do. You survive. You rebuild. You keep moving forward even when the past keeps trying to pull you back. People ask me sometimes what I learned from it all. They want a neat moral, a lesson that makes the pain worthwhile. The truth is messier than that. I learned that trust, once broken, doesn't heal the same way twice. I learned that secrets, even ones kept with good intentions, are corrosive. I learned that predators like Richard Pemberton exist, and they're patient and professional and very good at what they do. But I also learned that you can survive betrayal without becoming bitter, that you can lose a marriage and keep your integrity, that justice, when it finally comes, feels less like victory and more like exhaustion. And I learned that the anonymous person who sent me those first photos, whoever they were, probably saved my life. Not from death, but from years of unknowing. From building a future on a foundation that was already crumbling. I never found out who sent them. The FBI investigated but came up empty. Thomas Brennan had theories but no proof. Maybe it was someone Richard had wronged. Maybe it was someone who just believed people deserved to know the truth. Whoever they were, they gave me a choice. And I chose to face reality instead of living in a comfortable lie. That's the only real lesson I have. When the truth comes for you, and eventually it always does, you can either face it or let it destroy you from the inside out. I chose to face it. And 3 years later, I'm still standing. Scarred, yes. Changed, absolutely. But standing. That's enough.